Oh, watch out, welcome back. Okay, back to core business. Right, today on the Sportster I've got to do a primary oil change. Something that I've been meaning to do for a little while, and I want to explain what it is. It's a very, very simple task, it really is. I want to explain what it is though, because many people get confused. Harley Davidsons are unique to any other motorcycle in the sense that they have a separate transmission, two separate transmission oils. Now, if you come in close, Ben, on your Sportster there is a tank here which contains the oil. We all know this because if you take the cap off you can see it, it's ever so easy. And in that oil tank, that lubricates the engine. All of the cams and followers and bearings and bushes and so on, all lubricated by the engine oil. Also, in the back of the engine here there is the transmission. Now that is, when I say the transmission, I mean the gears, the actual synchros, the two shafts full of cogs that mesh together, the gearbox, as we call it in, or transmission as they call it in America. So that transmission sits behind there. That though is your secondary transmission. It's not actually the complete transmission. And the oil in a Sportster, the engine oil lubricates that part of the transmission as well. It's a unit construction, like you would say in a later model Triumph. So the engine oil and the transmission is all that oil there. On a big twin, like a Dyna or a Tourer, well, a Dyna and a Tourer is the same engine, and the Softail engines, there is a separate transmission oil. And to bore you with it, the reason for this is that they're a much heavier bike. They're 60-70 kilos heavier than one of these, and the gears mesh far harder, so they need a thicker transmission oil to protect those gears because they're doing a lot more load. And you know, like the big tourer bikes and so on, the Sportster's a lightweight bike, so the actual engine oil itself is thick enough to lubricate the transmission, but not on the bigger engines. That's why you have a separate transmission oil. So you don't have to worry about the transmission oil. When you change the engine oil on your Sportster, you change the transmission with it. It's all one, but there is, on the other side of the bike, there is a separate transmission oil that needs to be changed. I'll show you where it is. Right, okay, the easiest way to explain it is this casing here. This is the primary transmission case. This is where the power from the engine is transmitted, that's where the word transmission comes from the front of the engine on the crankshaft to the clutch, and then so through to the gearbox, and it runs the wheel. Now if you imagine your bicycle that you pedal up the road, you have your legs that push the pedals round, that's the pistons doing the pedaling, and at the bottom you have that big sprocket that the pedals are connected to. Well, there's a sprocket in there, and there's a chain like the chain on your bicycle, and that chain that goes back to the back wheel on your bicycle that turns the wheel with that stack of cogs on the back, the derailleur block, that block is your gearbox. And that's what we have here. This is no different whatsoever. You have a clutch there that connects to the gearbox. This side you have a cog in the front, a cog in the back, and a big fat chain that runs around inside there. Now if you know this already and you haven't fallen asleep, then bear with me. But those who don't know, they don't really understand what goes on inside this. This casing contains a big fat duplex chain. That means a duplex means it's got two rows of chainage, and it's got two sprockets on the front side by side and two on the back. And that big fat chain runs around in there, transferring or transmitting the power from the engine to the clutch and through to the gearbox. And there, inside there, because that chain runs round and round, it needs lubricating. And the oil in there is a simple, unique splash oil. It doesn't actually run through the rest of the engine. You can take this casing off. If you look at any of your custom Harleys, take this casing off. It's completely dry inside there. You can put pulleys on and a big fat rubber belt, and the engine will still run fine, no oil will leak out. This is a completely separate casing with no access to the rest of the engine. So the oil in there is completely unique on its own, and it needs to be changed roughly every 10,000 miles. Now, the reason for this is because the oil inside there doesn't do the bushes, the bearings, the gearbox. The oil that goes through the engine goes around journals and bearings, it gets meshed between gears, and that tends to mush it and kill it in 5,000 miles. But the oil inside here just splashes around a chain. Its actual job is just to splash around the chain and stop it getting overheated. It's just a simple lubricant. It's as simple as that. It's an oil bath chain casing. That's all that's inside there. So roughly every 10,000 miles, the oil inside there needs to be changed. And if you don't change it, it will still break down because it's still going through the teeth. The teeth go in the chain. We saw that when we changed the chain sprockets the other day. These will still mesh with the chain, there's still mushing going on, and that will kill the oil. So today all I'm going to do while I'm talking to you, I'm just going to change it. It's a simple task on the Sportster. You've got to get inside this casing, and what I'm going to do first of all is take this off. This is a foot peg that's in the way, annoyingly in the way of that one bolt there. So in order to get that off, this is rather tight. Typical. Now I can always tell these have never come off because that's the factory tension on this. A little trick for you. Allen key, big fat one, 10mm. Put a little step ring spanner on, get some leverage, and then just gently, it will go. Alright, the torque on that for later is 50 foot-pounds or so, which is huge. But it's only so it doesn't vibrate off. Which would be a bit awkward on your left foot peg, wouldn't it, Ben? Fall off on the floor. Right, all you need to do, take that first one out like I've done, and the rear one, just loosen it. And you can just drop that down out the way, because what we're doing is we just need access to that one, which we didn't have. Right, so now, Torx bit, T30, not T27. Is it T27 or T30? It's T27, isn't it? It is T27, Iris. Correction. Appendix to the aforementioned is a T27 Torx bit. Make sure you use the right size, and then just crack these off as you go around. Do them in a star pattern, use your common sense. Now I've done a couple of videos where I take these off, and I've always tried to say these really are honestly made out of very soft metal indeed, and that is a sharp tool. That is very hard indeed, and these little spikes are very sharp, and they will mince these soft finishings or these soft fasteners out very easily. So be very careful when you undo them. The trick is lean on it, lean right on it, get all the weight you can on it, and get it nice and square, absolute 90 degrees to the bolt, so it's not twisted, it's not going to jump out, and give it a crack, and it will go. If you kind of short circuit, you get slapdash with these, you'll mince them out, and that's a bit of a pain in the arse. I always keep 2 or 3 of these in the toolbox, usually use them at some point. Right, so this is an access panel to the clutch. Clutch inspection cover could be its name. I would always call it the clutch inspection cover, but I think the motor company like to call it the derby cover for some reason. Maybe any of you could tell me why this is called a derby cover or derby cover. I have no idea. Clutch inspection cover, because this is where you inspect the clutch. So it's ever so easy, isn't it, Pen?
Yep.
Right.
Simple.
These are copper slipped as well. So take note. I would always put copper slip on these. I would never put Loctite on them. They don't come undone. I've never had them come undone, and if they do get stuck and jammed in there, they're an absolute ball ache to get out, and they're not strong enough. These heads are not strong enough if you overdo them, or if some monkey has Loctited them or swung on them. Right, holding it in with your hand like that all the while. Coming close, Ben, this is important now. Now inside this case there's a little spring, and I want you to look down inside. Can you look down inside there as we come out? It doesn't spring out at you. You just don't want it to fall off.
Yep, see it.
There it is. Right, now this little spring, I just want to demonstrate, put it on his face so you don't scratch it. I just want to demonstrate how easy that just literally comes out. It's not connected to anything. That's the clutch adjustment nut with spring. So don't leave it there while we're doing this job. Take it out and put it in a safe place, because if it drops down inside there, you've got to take the whole casing off, and that can spoil your whole day. Right, so that's got the inspection cover off. If you look down inside, can I just...
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you have a look down inside there, you might just... Can I just guide you? I don't know if we can see. Probably not. Probably not see it, but... around. Maybe not see it in this light. Now, okay. Now the clutch, quite simply, there's your torch there. Quite simply, the clutch lives inside here, and the oil level that you require, because we're going to drain it now and then just fill it up. It only takes a few minutes. You can see in through there, and that's where you fill it through. There's no filler hole on the top. You don't go in through this or anything. You go in through there, and when you look down inside, you can see the oil level at the bottom of the clutch plates. So when the oil level comes up to the bottom of the clutch plates there, that you can just see, that's enough. You don't need any more. Certainly don't fill it up completely, because it will pour out and get too much. There's no pressure in there. It's not a pressurized casing. It's just, that's all the oil it needs. So that the bottom row, or the bottom of the chain, as it goes along the bottom of the casing, it goes through that oil bath, and then it comes back through the top, and it flings all over the place and lubricates everything nicely inside, which is very important. So in there, you can see the level. I've checked it. That's absolutely correct. And now I'm going to take spanner and drain off. Right, 7/8 AF spanner or socket. And it isn't much oil, as you'll see. Truly isn't much. Right, always good to have a little look. You've got a magnet in there, so just check out little bits of look. Now what that is, you'll get little bits of casing, because inside here this chain does lash about, and it is literally less than probably 3mm from the engine casings. And when I've taken these casings off, there's always little chew marks inside them where the chains touch them if it gets a little bit slack. So just check that it's not too bad. That's as low as it goes. That's absolutely not too bad at all. I've seen a lot worse than that. And someone's been in there and replaced the oil in its life, because that is plumber's tape, which is a bit crap. You should have an O-ring.
No comment.
No comment. Look at that. It's just white PTFE plumber's tape instead of a proper O-ring. Oh well, there we go. Little things like this. All of these here, look. All of these bolt holes have got a little bit of copper slip. Well, look, they're all smeared with copper slip. So they've been, somebody's cared about this. There's a new gasket in there, because I'll always tell you something else. The factory gasket, that little recess there, you have a rubber O-ring. The factory ones are siliconed in. You get 4 blobs of silicon, and they silicon them in so they stay there. And if you see them without silicon, you know it's been replaced. So the gasket's been replaced. That's had some sort of sealant around it. I've got some O-rings, I'll put a fresh one on. And the plug wasn't over tightened, so the thread's all good. So you can tell that it has been done. However, not recently, because if you look in the oil, have a look at that pen. That come out looking clean, but look inside there.
Yeah.
And if you had smell-o-vision, that smells like
Oh, not nice.
like,
oh, it's
smell it. It's like eggs, isn't it?
it's horrid.
Eggs.
Oh my
Any
God.
of you know this? Gear oil of any kind will always smell of sulphur. Don't know how exactly it happens chemically, but the oil when it comes out of the bottle doesn't smell of it. It just smells of it when it comes out. It's something to do with what happens to that oil in there. Now, if your Harley Davidson is like this one, this is what I was saying to you about. A mechanic will look at a bike and he'll judge things, and he'll make diagnoses from the way the bike looks. A beautiful, unmarked, clean, immaculate Harley Davidson like this, that's 6,000 miles or 3,000 miles old and 6 years, will have done lots of short trips. It will have done lots of sunny Sundays, isn't it, Pam?
Yep.
Lots of days out in the sunshine, lots of little short trips, and what that does is it renders loads of condensation inside the engine. That's when you take the oil out like this and it smells of eggs, like sulphurous, acidic smell, because that's got water in it. It's emulsified. Sometimes it's so bad it even goes grey. You get like a milky affair in there. And I've had even people email me and say, I think I've got a head gasket gone because my Harley's got water in the oil. Honestly, they're not water cooled. So it doesn't work that way, but you will accumulate water in your oil. It will get emulsified, is the right word, because you get condensation inside the engine from short trips, and the only way to eliminate it is to run the engine until it's hot enough to vaporize that water out through the vents, the various engine breather vents. And it doesn't help that modern engines don't really have breather vents. They rebreathe or they reconsume all their breathed air through the exhaust, which is why the exhaust rot out from the inside, because all the condensation goes down the pipes. Anyway, that's just chatting while that's draining. I'm happy with that being drained now. You can leave that draining overnight if you really want to, but I'm not going to bother because it's perfectly okay. It's down to a tiny little trickle now. Just going to wait till that's 1 or 2 drips, put the plug back in, and then we'll put some more oil in and bun it out. Okay, going to pop a new O-ring back in there. I'm going to use some of my favourite Hylamar. Everybody asks me all the time when I use this. This is fantastic sealant for oil plugs, oil drain plugs. The reason it's so good is it doesn't dry. I've had this tube since I was a bus mechanic in the 1980s. Could you not? Look at it, it's still soft. This is courtesy of London Transport, this tube of Hylamar. And all you do is smear it in. You can, if you ever want to test it, just take a blob of it, put it on the bench, and it will sit there sticky and wet for years. It just never sets. You don't need much of it. Don't get it around the magnet, because obviously you'll stop the magnet doing its job. And just fill the thread up with it, just like that. Just a light smear. You never use much, which is why a tube of that lasts you forever. So if you're interested, Marston's or Marston Hylamar. And you can buy it from any decent tool store, car store, whatever. And here we are. Let's pop it back in. And wipe its nose. A bit cold there. Right. Now, because it doesn't dry, it doesn't set, and it doesn't stick the thing in there. And it will just stay in place, and because it's soft, it will keep sealing it. And it will even stick to an oily surface. It's brilliant. Right, let's get that out of the way. You can see what the state of that. And by no means is that new. Definitely ready for a change.
Dispose of.
In a responsible manner at your local recycling centre. Let's just get the torque on the plug, hang on. Okay, now I would always advocate torquing one of those in. Now the weirdest thing, in your manual, incidentally, I hope you've all gone out and bought one of these. These are the Bible. You'll get everything you ever need in here. And if you look at this, as it says on there, remove any foreign material from the magnetic drain plug, install the drain plug and tighten to 14 to 30 foot-pounds, which I don't quite understand why it's almost twice as much, or over twice as much. But there it is, 14 to 30. So I'm going to put it in at 20, and we'll see how it goes. I don't know why it's like that, but there it is. Alright, 20, 14 to 30. I'm cheeky and put it at 25. There you go. And the great thing is, with all drain plugs, and I say this about sump plugs as well, if it leaks, there it is. If it leaks, just nip it up a little bit. I've got 5 foot-pounds left there that I can go, and that will be fine. I think you probably find it's because it's got an O-ring. I don't know. There we go. Okay, time to top it up now. Now I'm going to just address what to use. You can, if you wish, you can use 2050 engine oil. That's absolutely fine in there. There's no. You can probably buy a Harley Davidson specialised primary oil, but what it will be just a 2050 engine oil. That's all it needs to be. You can use the Screaming Eagle Sin 3. That goes in the engine. So if you want to streamline things a little bit when you do your servicing, you've got the engine oil going in, you put your Sin 3 in the engine, you can just take another quantity, another quart, and put it in the primary as well. That's absolutely fine, nothing wrong with that at all. I don't use that, I've always used ATF. Now, standard automatic transmission fluid, there's a certain quality about this stuff that I like, and I think it's a good reason to use it. You can use it in faults as well. Transmission fluid in faults is a good idea because it doesn't froth up. You don't get that foaming that you get in engine oil. If engine oil is shook up too much, if it's okay when it's being pumped under pressure around the engine, but if it lives in a casing and it's all being mixed up like a food mixer, it can tend to froth, and that means you're not getting neat oil on the places you need it. You're getting cavitated oil that's got air bubbles in it, and I don't think you get the best lubrication. Same in forks. Forks that do lots of juddering up and down, they can sometimes get cavitated. It was a problem with the Suzuki TL1000R, TL1000S, I think the first TL had a radial damper on the back, and inside it they used to cavitate when it went up and down really quick. So if you put ATF, automatic transmission in fluid, it used to virtually eliminate it completely. So I always use ATF in primaries. You can, it's fine, I've been doing it for years, absolutely the best thing to use as far as I'm concerned. Plus, telling pen, it costs pennies.
About £4.
About £4 for a litre, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So what I've got to do, can I grab that in there? Now where I need to get it to is the bottom. In that case, I'm going to wipe that funnel out a bit as well. That's better. Right, can you just, you can't really see it anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, I'm just going to pop in about a pint. And it's a bit tricky to get it in, but do about a pint and then check the level. Right, I'm going to try and show you the level if I can. It's now you can see. Actually, if I show you up inside there, if you can see it in there, there it is. Right, now you can see a little blue spacer in there, like a little blue plastic guide for the chain. If you get it up about halfway up that guide, as you can see the red oil is, that's fine, and you can see the oil level there at the bottom of the chain, at the bottom of the clutch plate, the outer clutch plate, and that's the correct level. All ready to do up. Okay, now you may do this as part of a clutch adjustment as well, and we have a video on clutch adjustment, so if you're not sure, just give us a shout. Where is it? There it is. There it is. If you're not sure about how to do a clutch adjustment, give us a shout, we'll send you a link to the video. Alright, so having the top, get the torch down there. Make sure that this spring locates inside this casing nicely, and that there's no, it doesn't sort of twang out on its own or anything. Nicely located in the hole. And just lever that up so it goes inside. There we are. Nice. So you shouldn't feel any resistance to that. It should just sit there neatly in it. And then put the bolts back in. Right, do them up first. Just go around them with a screwdriver head so you don't get any power in there. Just do them up carefully so that the whole thing's seated home on its rubber gasket. That rubber gasket looks in any way if you then just replace it. It didn't cost anything, about 20p. There we go. Now is really important to torque this up now. Torque settings on this. I'm going to use the book again for you just to show you how useful they are. 60 quid well spent. There we are, your torque settings on there. 9.5 to 12.2, or it uses inch pounds. Now I don't have a torque wrench that can use inch pounds, so I just refer straight to Newton meters. It's always on both on a Harley manual. So 10.5 to 12.2. I'm going to go at 10. 10 Newton meters, which isn't much. Oh my goodness, it's right down there. In fact, this torque wrench starts at 10. So to be honest, I mean, I'm talking this up to show you because then you could do it and so on. But personally, I don't normally bother. I just do them up by hand until they feel tight. Do them in a star pattern like that. Go across to the furthest one possible each time. So you draw the casing up evenly and don't buckle it, or worse still, crack it. Same rules apply as getting it off. Lots of pressure inwards, nice and 90 degrees. God, 10, that's mad. 10 Newton meters, it's nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that's it. If I see a dribble of oil coming out of here, I'll nip them up another half Newton meter if that, but I prefer to do them too loose than too tight. So always remember that any torqued or any torque setting is on a lubricated fastener. So put some grease, put some copper slip, put something to make it slide in, because if it's dry you'll get a drag. As the metal to metal goes of the thread going in, it will drag against itself, and that will give you a false reading on the torque wrench. It will click earlier than it's meant to do, and it will be loose. So doing this up, when it's as low as this, torque wrench settings are really more about getting the same torque on each bolt around a casing in an even amount than they are about getting it tight enough, because anyone can do them up tight enough and mince them off. It's getting them all the same so one of them doesn't fall out. Right, now what we've got to do is put this back on and we're good to go.
Oh, that wobbled me.
Did it?
Sorry.
Nothing like wobbling, yeah. Right, these are foot pegs. They're going to come loose if you don't do them up tight. So 50 foot-pounds or that much FT is good enough. Okay, so there we go. Primary transmission oil change. It is one of the most neglected servicing tasks on the whole card. It really is. As I said at the very beginning, your Dyna, therefore, and Touring and Softail models do have 3 separate oils. They have a transmission secondary oil to change as well, and these don't. The engine and the transmission are lubricated by the one oil in that tank, which is why this primary oil does tend to get neglected. Ever so easy to do, honestly, a piece of cake. Do it yourself. That's taken, even filming this, it's only taken about half an hour to do, messing around, chatting, laughing with her at the same time, distracting me, and it is a really, really easy task you can do yourself. That was a couple of pounds. You can buy that from any car accessory store. You can use fancy oil if you want to use something really lovely and pamp your bike, like I said. Screaming Eagle Sim 3, but please, like I said, I want to stress it finally again, do not put gear oil in there. Don't put gear oil anywhere near a Sportster. It doesn't use it at any time. It's either engine oil, 2050 multigrade, or a Dextron ATF will be absolutely fine. Stuff you can even use in your forks. Anything else, Ben?
That's it, we've done.
Here we go. Primary transmission oil change. Thanks for watching. See you next time.